the Reverend James Cleveland.
James Cleveland was the ultimate gospel legend, with 4 Grammys under his belt and a voice that could bring the heavens down. With a string of hits and multiple Grammy wins, Cleveland's career soared. He wasn't just singing, he was preaching through music, touching hearts and souls across the globe. His influence was massive, and he became a mentor to many in the gospel world, earning respect and adoration everywhere he went. But hold up, after his death, some jaw-dropping secrets spilled out thanks to his son, Christopher Harris. What did Cleveland do to earn the chilling label of the most evil man in gospel? What were these dark secrets that tarnished Cleveland's golden legacy? And how did these revelations shake up the gospel world? We'll get to that in a bit. But before that, let's get into him, his rags to riches story.
58 years old. And I said if the Lord would allow me to see that birthday, I would have been in gospel 50 years.
Early life James Cleveland was born on December 5th, 1931, right in the heart of a very alive Chicago, a city pulsing with the beat of gospel and soul music. His parents were the salt of the earth, hard-working and super religious, and they raised him in a home where faith and music were like PB&J, totally inseparable. James's grandma was a devout powerhouse who basically got him hooked on gospel. She took him to the Pilgrim Baptist Church, a place that would become his second home and the launch pad for his epic career. By the time he was 8, James was already making waves with his solo debut in the church choir. Imagine this little guy belting out tunes and leaving everyone in awe. Enter Thomas A. Dorsey, the legendary father of gospel music. This guy saw potential in young James and took him under his wing, teaching him the ropes of gospel. Dorsey's mentorship was like gold dust, shaping James into the gospel great we all know today. But it wasn't just Dorsey. James was also starstruck by Roberta Martin, a big name in gospel who performed at the same church. Her influence was huge, and her group, the Roberta Martin Singers, were like the OGs who helped mold James's unique style.
To obey, no matter where, for he...
Growing up during the Great Depression meant money was tighter than a drum. James's family couldn't swing for a piano, so he got creative, practicing on a windowsill. Yep, he used the crevices and wedges as pretend keys, dreaming of the day he'd play the real deal. Eventually, his folks scraped together enough cash to buy him an upright piano. This was a game changer. James was all in, practicing like crazy and blending traditional gospel with cool jazz vibes. His talent was off the charts, and soon enough, he started attracting major attention. James, as a teenager, was already a rising star in Chicago's gospel scene. He joined a local group called the Thorn Gospel Crusaders, and this is where his talent as a composer really started to shine. Imagine a young James penning soulful tunes that had everyone in the gospel community buzzing. One of his early bangers, Grace is Sufficient, was performed at a big Baptist convention in 1948. This wasn't just any performance. It was a game changer. Roberta Martin, the gospel queen herself, heard it and was so impressed she started publishing his work. This was the big break James needed to kickstart his professional career. Around the same time, James got involved with a missionary group called Soul Winners for Christ, thanks to his teenage buddy Jesse Jimerson Phillips. This squad, based at Chicago's Greater Harvest Baptist Church, had some notable members like Richard D. Hennon. Being part of this group wasn't just about music. It solidified James's commitment to his faith and his passion for gospel music. But here's a twist. James faced a major setback when he strained his vocal cords while singing with a local group. This could have been a total career killer, but James flipped the script. The injury gave him that iconic, gravelly voice we all know and love. Instead of seeing it as a problem, he embraced it. His, let's call it new, evolved voice set him apart. Impact and death. He went on to have a career that any artist would quite literally cave for. But James wasn't content with just his success. He co-founded the Gospel Music Workshop of America, GMWA, with Albertina Walker. This annual event became a magnet for gospel talents across the nation, growing into a massive movement with over 150 chapters and 30,000 members. It brought together gospel legends like Kirk Franklin and Yolanda Adams, laying the foundation for the genre's explosive popularity. James also had a knack for remixing pop, R&B, and soul into gospel anthems. His gospel twist on Gladys Knight's "You're the Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me" turned into "Jesus is the Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me," earning him a Grammy nod in 1975. He worked his magic on Barry Manilow's "I Write the Songs" and Whitney Houston's "Didn't We Almost Have It All," turning them into gospel hits that left everyone in awe.
Didn't we almost have it all?
In the mid-'80s, James decided to venture into the record business with his own label, King James Records. Even though the label folded after a few years, it showed his relentless drive to shape the gospel music landscape. From producing albums with the GMWA to releasing Billy Preston's first gospel album, James was all about pushing boundaries and creating platforms for gospel artists. James's career was sprinkled with Grammy glory. He nabbed his first Grammy in 1974 for the album In the Ghetto and kept the wins coming with Live at Carnegie Hall and collaborations like Lord Let Me Be an Instrument. Even as his health declined, his influence in the gospel world remained unshakable. On February 9, 1991, the gospel world lost a giant. James passed away in Culver City, California, at 59, leaving behind a legacy that still felt today. Over 8,000 mourners gathered at his funeral, a true testament to his impact. He was laid to rest at Inglewood Park Cemetery, but his music and spirit continue to inspire. After he passed away, he left behind a chaotic legal mess because, surprise, he didn't have a will. This threw his so-called foster son, Andre Cleveland, into a whirlwind as he tried to grab a slice of the estate pie. But oh boy, did the court make him work for it. Andre Cleveland, whose real name is Andre McKisich, yup, he had a stage name too, claimed he was like a foster son to James. Here's the scoop. Andre's mom, Esther McKisich, moved to L.A. in 1968 and met James. They shacked up in James's home for a solid 12 years, starting when Andre was 12 until he hit 24. During this time, James played the role of dad, supporting Andre and even putting him down as a dependent on his taxes. Andre swore that James wanted to officially adopt him, but his mom was a hard pass on that, because she wanted Andre to keep her last name. Fast forward to court, and Andre's pulling out all the stops to prove he's an interested person under probate law, a fancy term that means he should inherit because he was practically James's kid. But the court was like, hold up, bro. They ruled that there was no legal barrier stopping the adoption once Andre turned 18, a whole 16 years before James died. Translation, no adoption, no inheritance. On November 6, 1991, Andre filed to get some of James's property transferred to the estate. Enter Annette Mae Thomas, the trustee of James's trust, who wasn't having any of it. She argued that Andre didn't have a leg to stand on because he was never legally adopted and was only mentioned as a friend and godson in the trust with a one-time gift of $110,000, which he did get. Annette pushed for a quick win, filing for summary judgment, and the court sided with her. The judge ruled that Andre didn't qualify as an interested person since the supposed adoption barrier, his mom's refusal, disappeared when he hit 18. After that, if James really wanted to adopt him, he had plenty of time. But he didn't. Andre tried to appeal, but the higher court was like, nah, bro, basically. They emphasized that the law requires a legit barrier to adoption, and since Andre's mom wasn't a problem after 18, there was no real obstacle. James could have made it official, but he didn't, so Andre was out of luck. And just when you think it can't get juicier, enter Leon Cleveland, James's daughter. Yep, in October 1991, Jean Irvin, a member of James's church, dropped the bombshell that she was the mom of James's only biological child, Leon, born in 1965. Jean's claims threw some major shade on Andre's status as James's adopted son, suggesting he was more of a charity case among many kids James had helped over the years. This revelation made people rethink what they knew about James's family life. Leon's existence wasn't a big headline during James's lifetime, but Jean's statements brought her into the spotlight. It showed a softer, more personal side of James, one that was about real human connections, not just his public image. James had made sure to include Leon in his estate planning, setting aside a chunk of his assets for her. This wasn't just a legal formality. It was James's way of saying, "I've got your back, kid."
Did Reverend James Cleveland really die from AIDS? Whoa.
Also, there's the S assault accusations. Christopher Harris, who used to go by Christopher Cleveland, was just 13 when he caught Cleveland's eye in the church choir. Picture this, a 6-foot-tall teenage boy singing alto. No wonder he stood out. Cleveland took a special interest in him, but it wasn't the mentorship Harris had hoped for. Harris dropped a bombshell, accusing Cleveland of abusing him for 5 years, starting when he was just a kid. The nightmare continued until Harris contracted HIV. Can you imagine? He later sued Cleveland's estate, trying to get some justice for the horrific abuse he says he endured. The case was quietly settled out of court. And while Harris can't spill the exact details, he's been pretty open about the manipulation and exploitation he faced. Cleveland's S orientation was an open secret among his close circle and the church community. People knew about his relationships with young men, but chose to turn a blind eye. This kind of hush-hush culture meant Cleveland's behavior went unchecked for years. It's a stark reminder of the dangers when communities ignore troubling behavior. James Cleveland's life was complicated. He was a groundbreaking force in gospel music, transforming the genre and touching countless lives with his powerful voice. But his personal actions cast a long, dark shadow over his legacy. So, how do you balance the legend with the man behind the music? It's a tough question, and everyone has their own take.